Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to be organizing Perseverance Castaway Chronicles episodes 1 and 2, designed by Victor Peter, Richard Amon, David Turczi, Thomas Van Gens, Wolf Plank, and published by Mindclash Games. This is a fully sleeved copy of the Deluxe Edition of the game that includes the miniatures, as well as upgraded components and an organization system in one giant box. It's organized to get gameplay started as soon as possible with no lid lift, implementing the organization system included, as well as making sure that some of the repetitive components are removed or moved around so that you can clearly see what items will be used in each different episode. If you have any questions about anything you see here, please leave a comment in the comment section of this video, and if you're looking for any of the items that we use to organize this game, please take a look in the description of the video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. Let's get started organizing Perseverance Castaway Chronicles episodes 1 and 2. Let's lift off the lid here, and inside you'll see that we have a dice tray for the game. This is a foldable dice tray with buttons on both sides, so that way you can actually feature the artwork for the episode you're playing. We've got our episode 2 artwork and our episode 1 artwork. Go ahead and set that up, and when you're finished, collapse it back down. Underneath that, we have some of your smaller boards. We have the assembly scoring board for 3 and 4 and 2 players, your outpost offer, as well as your dissenter board for your solo mode, and then your Dino attack board. Now's a good time to talk about these symbols that appear on the different components. This blue symbol means it's used during episode 1, and this purple symbol means it's used during episode 2. You'll see a lot of components that have these features, and then some components will be double-sided featuring episode 1 and episode 2, and other components will say that they're used in both episodes. We have our episode 1 game board that features your area where your dinosaurs will be attacking you. Up next, we have all of your paper components with our journal that's going to detail the life and times of the characters in the Castaway Chronicles universe, and also give you some backstory on the game as a whole. And then we have all of the different rule books. So the rule books here are organized based on these symbols as well. So we have the episode 1 rule book, your episode 2 rule book, and then we have the episode 1 and 2 Chronicle expansion rule book, where you're going to be playing them one after the other. And then you have the solo mode, where you include those dissenter components. And lastly, you have your own tray manual here. I really like these tray manuals as they're going to guide you step by step on how to organize this. And if you'd like to, you can use this in tandem with this video to help get your game set up. So really awesome addition here. Love the tray manual. We have our game board for episode 2 that features all the exploration areas. And lastly, you have your main large boards for episode 2 that have your recessed boards where you're going to put up your different level ups from your officer actions. Very, very cool. And we'll remove those for the other 4 players. Underneath all of our boards, we now have our miniature trays, and these are going to contain all of your dinosaur miniatures, as well as some of your extra light and heavy soldiers that we'll talk about in a bit. In this smaller box here, we have all of our Trampler dinos. You're going to be using them in each game. Go ahead and pop off the top and set them in an available area. The Deluxe Edition comes with washed versions of the minis, and I think these are great additions over those standees. Really bring some 3D flair to the game. To the right of your Trampler dinos, we have all of your shield head dinos. You'll only use the shield heads in episode 2, so you can put this tray to the side if you're playing episode 1. Now, the reason that we have all of your light and heavy extra miniatures in here is because during the game, you're actually only going to be using 5 heavy and 5 light soldiers. The rest just kind of get in the way and make it so that you may think that you have more soldiers than are actually available to you. So to just avoid confusion, we have the extra models here. If you'd like to switch them out for the different model types, you can, and they are here to do so. But they're in here because there's no reason really to have them when you're actually playing the game. Now's a good time to talk about the repetitive components of the game. When you play with the Deluxe Edition, you're going to have a lot of cardboard standees and plastic stands and cardboard tokens that you're not going to use. You'll have miniatures and metal tokens to replace them. We've gone ahead and removed everything, and we've used the trays for other things. But if you really want to, you can smush all of these into the appropriate trays. You will need a small bag for some of the components, but generally you can fit them into the extra wells here, but I don't really recommend it. You don't need these components. In addition, if you store those cardboard standees in these areas, you are going to have to store these other pieces into your other component trays, which make for a way tighter fit, as well as maybe some confusion when it comes to realizing how many of each miniature type you have. And our last Dino Minis box is for all of your Raptor tokens, and you'll need these for both episodes. Inside here, we have a silica gel packet for freshness, as well as some extra glow berries in case you do run out of the squishy ones that come inside. This is the only repeated component that I do have in here because it is a resource token that you will use in episode 2, and those resources can run out in a 4-player game. In our next tray here, we have a lot of our reference cards resting on the top of the plastic, and these are going to be for your different episodes, not only your turn sequences, but how the assembly phases work, the dino attacks, dino combat, etc. In order to protect our oversized reference cards, because you will be using them quite a bit, we use the horizontal booklet one-touch resealable bags. They feature a nice press and seal format where you can actually modify the size of these bags and then trim them down so they work as sleeves. This is a great option for games that feature these large cards, and you're essentially creating your own oversized sleeves for them. Up next, we have all of our campaign logs if you're deciding to play the games back-to-back, and you'll have some laminated and some just pen and paper, so you don't feel bad about using them. And that brings us into our first shared tray. Now this has components that'll be used over both episodes, but a lot of components that will also be used in the solo mode and crossover campaign mode. In this upper right section, we have all of our follower dials, which you'll be using to track all of the different players' victory points, essentially. And then you also have your dissenter dial, which will track the number of followers that they have. Underneath that, you'll have your deterministic cards for episode 1 and episode 2, and you'll be using those if you're trying to avoid rolling dice in your games. Now's a good time to talk about the large card sleeves we use for the game. We use the Mayday Games Magnum card sleeves. These are 70mm by 110mm, commonly known as Lost Cities size sleeves. You'll be using these for the majority of the large cards in your game, and you'll see them as we go through the video. Once again, links in the description of the video for anything that we talk about here. Continuing on the top here, you have all of your achievement tiles, as well as your Chronicle tokens that you'll be using in the episode 1 and 2 back-to-back games. On the left side here, you have all of your common dice, these white dice. You'll be using them in every game you play, as well as this red danger die that you'll be using to resolve your different explorations. On the bottom left, we have all of our Chronicle cards that we'll be using in that 1 and 2 episode campaign. And in this bottom right corner, you'll have all of your solo-specific components, including your different cards for the solo mode episodes. And lastly, your Descent leader standees and associated bases for whichever color you decide them to be. And that's everything in this common components tray. Let's go ahead and pack this one up. We'll put all of our solo cards over those leader standees, followed by our Chronicle cards on this bottom left. We'll put our achievement tiles over these Chronicle tokens, our standard dice over in this upper left, and then our red die for resolving our adventures. We'll put the rest of our deterministic resolution cards, followed by all of our follower dials, and cover it up with our player aids as well as our campaign logs. And that's everything in our common components tray. And that brings us to a layer of player components. And all of these are organized the same way, so we're just going to go through one of them here, and then you'll just repeat that process for the other 4 trays. Let's take a look inside of this red tray here and go through its different sections. Now, in the bottom section, we have all of your light and heavy soldiers, and you only have 5 of each in here, because in each episode, you only are ever going to need 5. So there's no reason to have more, as it may confuse you when you're seeing how many you have left or how many you can recruit. You're also going to have 15 of your influence cubes in here, because in episode 1, you only ever use 15. It's only in episode 2 when you're going to use all 25, and so we have the remaining 10 up here. I also find it's easier to take them out from this large tray as opposed to this tiny one here. I find it a bit more finicky to pull out the different cubes from there. Up next, we have all of the walls for episode 1 and your trap tokens for episode 1, your tiny little settlements here for both episodes, your colored dice for both episodes, and then your different settlements and guard towers for episode 2. And lastly, in this top section here, you'll have a variety of components here used in the different episodes. You have your exploration marker, your valor marker, your permanent votes, your leader base, your deterministic markers, your breach marker, your safeguard marker, and your vote marker. Make sure you have one of each of these tokens in that small well. And that's everything in one of your player components box. Let's go ahead and close that lid back up and then put it to the side. You'll repeat that process for the other 3 colors, and then we'll just put them to the side for now. And that brings us to our last 2 trays, the episode 1 and episode 2 trays. Let's start off with the episode 1 tray. Now in this tray, it actually has a divot in the plastic insert where you can store all of your player boards. You just pull those right out. You have one side that's recessed that has a special ability, and the other side that has no special ability but is not recessed. So keep that in mind when you're playing. Go ahead and grab the one that fits the playstyle you want to enjoy. Inside the tray, you're going to have all of your patrol cards, like so, as well as your different reward cards underneath for your light soldiers, as well as your heavy soldiers. To sleeve your smaller cards, we use the clear mini European board game sleeves from Game Plus. Once again, I'll leave a link in the description of the video so you can find sleeves for your game. You'll have all of your different dice for your danger level, as well as your walls and traps, your different leader miniatures, your different resources for the stories, food, and steel, and then you'll have your different officer tiles that you'll shuffle up and put at the bottom of each of the different settlements settlement sections. And then you'll have your different reward tiles for the different sections for the assembly phase, followed by the assembly payouts for the different player counts. You'll see that they're marked in this bottom right corner here for the different player counts, as well as a reminder of what to do when you start each new turn. Lastly, you have your different breach tokens, as well as your dangerous combat area tokens and your community area cover tokens. And you'll go ahead and put all of these out on the board in their appropriate spots. Let's go ahead and pack up our episode 1 box, starting off with our dangerous area tiles, our assembly phase tiles, as well as our officer tiles on top of those, our patrol cards, the plastic cover for the tray, and all of your player boards. And that's everything in the episode 1 tray. And that brings us to our final tray, the episode 2 tray. And inside, you're going to have a very similar setup to the tray 1. You'll have all of your leaders on the left side here, followed by the temple miniature. I really like how this is painted. You put that on its appropriate tile on the board. Your different resources and food, your steel, your stories, and your bone resource, and then your glowberry resource replaced by these fancy squishy miniatures. Love the way these work. You also have your marker to show when a combat needs to be resolved. You have your outpost tiles, which become new spaces that you can visit on the board, as well as your officer tiles for episode 2 specifically. There are 5 instead of 4 because there are more areas for area control. Underneath the officers, you'll have all of your exploration tiles, and then in this section here, you'll have all of your different large cards. For those large cards, you'll have your different dino attack cards separated by the different types of terrains you'll be fighting on, and then you'll have your different exploration cards. You'll have some for the canyon adventures, as well as the plane adventures, and then you'll have 2 special categories. Your starting plane adventures, which are represented by this card here. You'll give 1 to each player at the beginning of the game. Make sure to keep them separate. And then you'll also have your starting temple adventure card, which you'll be using, once again, 1 for each player at the start of the game. And in this last section, very similar to episode 1, you have all of your light and heavy reward cards, your different assembly reward tiles, and then your assembly payouts for the different amounts of followers that you'll be getting, and a reminder on how to prep the next round. That's everything in our episode 2 tray. Let's go ahead and pack it up by first putting all of our extra cards here, our officer tiles on top of that, and then our plastic tray to keep it all nice and snug. And that's everything in the episode 2 tray. And that's everything inside of the box. Let's go ahead and pack it all up. Let's start off with our episode 2 and episode 1 trays pushed onto their respective sides on the bottom layer here. We'll put all of our player components on top of that, stored horizontally so that they fit nice and snug. Your common components on the left side here, your Raptor tray on the right side here, and it is important that it is the Raptor tray next to your core components here because they are the same height. Make sure that you have them like this, otherwise your entire organization system will be a little bit off balance. We'll put our 2 remaining dino trays on top like so, your large episode 2 player boards followed by your large episode 2 game board, all of your different rule books as well as your lore book, your episode 1 game board, followed by your smaller mini boards, with your 2 smallest ones being set side by side. And lastly, your flattened out dice tray. And that's organizing Perseverance Castaway Chronicles. If you have any questions about what you saw here, once again, please let me know down in the comments below. How do you organize your copy of Perseverance Castaway Chronicles? Did you get the deluxe edition of the game? Do you prefer the standees, or do you really like the miniatures? Which of the 2 episodes do you like? Do you prefer the mechanics and exploration and tech trees in 2, or do you like the more tower defense style of episode 1? Have you played the 2 together? What do you think of the campaign experience overall? We'd love to hear what you think. But thanks so much for watching. SideGame Strong.